Green Angel, pages 38 through 43. Each night before I slept, I took the black ink and tattooed ravens and roses and bats that could fly through the dark. Though I was almost blind, I could see well enough to do this. I could spy black ink, sorrow, loss, hearts breaking. I could see well enough to see that I was alone. I could see that soon enough I'd be starving if I didn't figure out what to do next. I had picked all the blackberries that grew in the woods, all the blueberries, all the raspberries. I had found wild asparagus and made soups in the black pot I kept on the fire I left burning in the stove. My hands were rough from chopping wood, from gathering asparagus in the marshes, from collecting the few berries that hadn't been singed black from the heat across the river. There were very few tins left in the pantry, no flour, no salt, and my stomach went on growling, wanting me to stay alive. I decided to go into town, but I wasn't a fool. I took precautions. I wore my leather jacket, my clothes with thorns, my heavy boots into which I had hammered half a dozen nails. I carried my stones and my slingshot. I was ready for looters, wild men, highway robbers. I expected almost anything, but when I left the woods for the main thoroughfare, all that greeted me was an unnatural silence. There used to be traffic. There were trains that ran on the hour, racing across the Silver Bridge into the city. Now the bridge had all but melted in the heat from the city. It was closed, a thick rope tied across the entrance. People stayed close to home, worried about what might await them on the open road. There used to be children headed to the river to swim on hot days. Now there was no one. There used to be bicyclists, carts, farmers on their way into town to the monthly market. Now there was nothing but the dust I kicked into the air with every step I took. My sister's dog had followed me. He snarled at the few strays lurking about, pets left to fend for themselves when their owners failed to return home. On one corner there were two dead ravens, their feathers thick with ash. The plum trees that had lined the road were leafless, the bark gray. When I passed the church just outside the village, there was a sign printed with the names of everyone who'd been lost. One after another, mothers and fathers, sons and daughters. I was amazed by how many there were. But I was not surprised to see my name among them. The girl I had been, the one called Green, they were right about her. She was gone. The shopkeeper at the general store stared hard when he saw me. He didn't know who I was, with my short hair and my black ink and the nails in my shoes. He reached for the club he kept near his money box, ready to fight me off if need be. Even after I told him I was my parents' daughter, he didn't seem to believe me. He spoke from a distance, keeping the counter between us, as if he were conversing with a ghost. Everyone said you were dead, he insisted. I didn't dispute this. I didn't say these people were wrong. I just took what I'd brought to trade out of my backpack and held it up to the light. The shopkeeper noticed my cloudy eyes. He could tell I was half blind, and perhaps this is why he tried to cheat me. He told me the ring I had was copper, but I knew it was gold. My mother had kept this ring in a bowl on her dresser, and I'd played with it ever since I was a baby. I knew what I held in my hands. Pure sunlight. Pure gold. I laughed at the idea that my mother's most valuable piece of jewelry was copper. The sound of my voice frightened the shopkeeper, and he stepped even farther away. He didn't know what to expect from me, but one thing was certain. I wasn't shy anymore. I wasn't that quiet, moody girl Green whom anyone could fool. I was the girl who could touch the earth and gauge where to find the river. I was the one who could feel sorrow in the wind. I knew that gold was heavy, copper warm, and the silver candlesticks I brought forth from my backpack felt like ice. I suppose you're going to tell me these are deer's antlers, I said of the candlesticks, which had been cast by one of the finest silversmiths in the city. I know what I have, I told the shopkeeper. I expect to be paid well. That was the last of any arguments at the general store. As a matter of fact, the shopkeeper called for his wife, who came to watch me with narrowed eyes, as if I were a circus act or a charlatan. Green? The shopkeeper's wife said uncertainly. She'd known my family quite well, and had often bought vegetables from my mother. But in the world we lived in now, why should she trust me any more than I trusted her? Why shouldn't she gawk at the nails in my boots, the slingshot in my pocket? The shopkeeper and his wife tested my ability to distinguish by touch. If I could identify silver and gold, what else might I know? Surely I could tell green tea from black, navy beans from kidney beans, earth from ashes. honesty from deceit. I had another talent, it seemed, one that made people nervous.